consultant, found my way to own and operate a few kind of early stage businesses. Some of them did great, some of them not so great. Kind of a common theme when you kind of play in the building of business in the world. And today I manage a company for the US called Clicked, data analytics firm. We have two products that we put into marketplace. And I tell you this stuff only for relevance. There's no pretense on any of this stuff. I just want you to know the perch that I sit at, perspective that I have on collaboration, and how they apply to making your business a big Click, there's two products. We have we're a data analytics company. We have a software platform that provides really valuable insights into players and coaches. We've been incredibly successful in what I would call the performance space. People that are really aspiring good players are currently really good players. We have about 250 Division I programs included in that world and are using our platform for that. That gave us some credibility in the marketplace. We were recently awarded a contract to manage all scoring and ranking for college golf, which includes the NCAA, its 3 divisions, the NAIA, the NCAA. But what this does is, and why we're in that position, is that we're really good at just taking in data and information, I think is relevant to this conversation, and delivering them back to a greater population or their constituents where it makes value and makes sense. That's the core of what we do. The agenda we have, I'm going to leverage the guys up here, and hopefully leverage some of your stories. We're going to talk a little bit about what collaboration in my mind is. This is not an academic perspective. This is not written from a book. It's the way that I kind of view collaboration, just from my experiences and others. And we'd love to hear your kind of perspective on collaboration. I have a little bit of best practices to layer in there. Things that have worked for me. And again, not necessarily works for everybody, but I would kind of, because of my breadth of touching multiple industries, I don't find this stuff unique to any industry. I've been in the golf business for 18 years, so I do have perspective on that. We're going to touch then on really some maybe real life experiences, maybe some of the challenges in the golf industry. I kind of feel the golf industry specifically is maybe a little provincial, as I like to say, meaning we don't always talk right to each other, right? We talk maybe, you have your state association, PGA of America, you have the USGA, you have your sections at the PGA level, you have all these different governing bodies, you also have a whole host of companies that participate in the marketplace. And I'm not sure we are serving our customer as well as we could be because of lack of collaboration. That's kind of the thesis of today, and then we'll kind of open it up to some real world examples. These guys have certainly been around the block as it relates to some partnership deals that have done with others. And then we'll wrap it up with some questions and get some ideas from the field and see if we can have a conversation. Does that all make sense? Otherwise, we'll talk about politics today. But we'll stay on point. So, to start, the challenges of the golf industry, I'll really start there. As an entrepreneur, I built a business 15 years ago. It was a hospitality business. Whenever you are a small business, it requires you to reach out to others, to learn, to find out, to figure out, etc. The thesis being is that we can do, and that business found its footing only after about 4 years when the PGA of America raised their hand. They kind of invited me in for a meeting. I learned about their needs as it related to hospitality, their championships, kind of created a program, and it kind of opened the door for a business to grow. Okay, but collaboration, let's go back to that, because that's just a lead into an anecdote. Collaboration is about two people, two organizations, multiple organizations, with good intentions to get to an end game, right? To get to a common goal. And I use the word common goal, please remember that, because I'm not sure I agree with that, but we'll use that as a starting point. Does anyone disagree or have comments on that? Is that what you guys view as collaboration? We can kind of level set there. And there's all kinds of what I would call mechanisms that kind of contribute to collaboration, right? It opens up with a need base, good salespeople. Actually, you may not even know they're collaborating with you and they're selling you, but it feels like collaboration, right? right? It feels like. It feels like they're asking about your problems. They're asking about your challenges. You're kind of engaging in conversation. And I think that's where all this starts, but it also is foundation in, are you transparent? Do you have common objectives and goals? Are you able to reach across the yard and think about what your other partner needs? Because I'm going to hold on to that thought. Let's keep that as a marker, because in any good deal-making sense or any positive collaboration, it requires someone to think about somebody else, of what their needs are, what their objectives are, even maybe ahead of ultimately the person who is actually kind of initiating the collaboration. Does that make sense? Okay. The other part of that game is that I believe that idea that it's a common goal, I think is a little bit, I'm going to challenge you on this thing a little bit. I believe it's a little bit of a misnomer. I think it's more about value exchange, right? So as a company that has a lot of access to data, I can go to these guys and I can make a proposition that, hey, I can help you really good performing players. I can talk about how we give them a product that actually powers their initiatives at the State Golf Association. But if I don't start thinking about of what that information means or what that translates into their customer, before I think about how much I'm charging them, before I think about how much I'm implementing into their business, how much time we're spending, I think I then lose, and I think there's no collaboration. All right, so that's the challenge. The challenge is, how do you get to a place that everyone is kind of working together for a more common and better goal? And there are a couple of examples before we go into corporate kind of collaboration. That there have been two great examples, I think, in the golf industry, which really led to incredible results in collaboration. Does anybody want to venture and guess, like, there are macro issues in golf? Like, does anyone think about where collaboration in our industry really worked? Anyone, guys? Guesses?
Live in the PGA Tour.
Live in the PGA Tour, maybe. That's not what I was thinking of. That one didn't go as well yet, but we'll see. Well, what I'm thinking about is actually what happened around COVID. Right? So this was an existential threat to the industry of golf. And there's nothing more as a facilitator to have collaboration. The easiest form of collaboration is when everyone is worried about their livelihood and everybody's worried about their business, right? That's the easiest set. We all agree, like, if that's going on, we have no choice but to collaborate. So the result of that collaboration, whether it be PGA of America, USGA, golf associations, hotel operators, restaurateurs, OEMs in the business, owner-operators, all got together for the first time. I mean, when the invited clubs were talking to the Century Golf guys at the same table, I mean, no magic was happening, right? So they all went in a concerted effort in a collaborative way. What are your needs? What are your needs? How do we solve this problem? How do we deal with this issue? How do we go about going and keeping our golf courses open? That collaboration worked, right? And what was the result? We have a business that grew like it never grew before. We were able to expose an incredible amount of golfers to the game that maybe weren't exposed before. We woke up people that were nascent golfers, people that were playing a few times a year, and made them core golfers. Those are the things that collaboration, the power of that can transform an industry. But it shouldn't take existential threats to constantly do that. Right? Any questions there? Anything that rings true? Anything that you question? Anything that you challenge on that? All right, cool. The next thing I want to talk about before I hand it over to like real people that have perspective on this stuff is that the other collaboration was, and I heard it here this week, these conferences are incredible vehicles for collaboration. When I mean collaboration, people exchange ideas, people talk about cool things. There was a presentation the other day on water, right? I learned a lot, right? The water issue as it relates to Southern California and Arizona and Nevada and all kind of those states, and that probably issues all over the country. They, again, it's an existential threat, need to collaborate. They need to get all of their ducks in a row. They need to reach across the aisle. They need to even talk to their competitors. They need to talk to different constituents to make sure that they get an end game that is positive to the industry. Then there are all kinds of other collaborations. So we all kind of collaborate at work. We find that kind of easy. Common goal, common objective. You sit down at the table, you work something out. I call my accountant, I call on the processing person, I call on the marketing person. Let's get together, let's come up with a plan. That exists, yes? Do we find that challenging in our businesses? That's probably easier, right? The next level is, okay, you have a corporate guy who's trying to move goods. How do you collaborate with an association that has different needs? And we'll kind of come back to that because we'll tell some stories. I think the hardest one is competitive collaboration, right? So, and when I say competitors, we're not always directly competitors. So as a data analytics firm, I have a live scoring product. I'm not in the live scoring business. My friends at Golf Genius, they view that as very competitive. My friends at Blue Golf, they find that very competitive. But if we could find ways to exchange data, exchange best practices, see where we can add value, the only one who wins from that collaboration, not only I think we do, but the consumer benefits, the golfer benefits. If we can kind of lay on all those great things that we all can do, I think we all benefit. The other thing from an association standpoint, you should not be shy to reach out into market as it relates to expertise. Because if you have a bunch of vendors around, and you have a bunch of, they all have their own skill sets, right? And this is kind of a little bit of it, but if you're a soft goods manufacturer or a soft goods distributor, you understand logistics. You understand how things are moved. And maybe within your association, you're trying to solve a problem, you may not have that expertise in-house. Right? Reach across the aisle. If those people are serious about doing business with you, they should enter into collaboration. Now, whether you get into some kind of business arrangement or not will only be determined by you considering the value that they need and them considering the value that you need. Doesn't have to be equal, it just has to be acceptable, right? And that's not always cash, sometimes it is. Sometimes the vendor requires that, right? But other times it could be, what am I paying for to get a better chance at a marketplace? What am I doing to prove concept? What am I doing to, reach more of your constituents in a kind of endorsed way? Those are things that are trade in kind and a kind of value exchange. And the last one, which I'm going to talk about, is really data and technology. I think, and we try to position as a collaborative business. I like to use that word, collaborative. Our objective is that we think we can take data from multiple sources of technologies around the industry. I mean, how many technologies are our constituents using? I mean, it's becoming endless, right? Green grass golf is not the only way to play golf. There's simulator golf. There's health wearables. There's TrackMans and all kinds of simulators. There's all kinds of measurements of what's going on. Data is becoming a real piece of this thing. And the only thing I can promise you, we're going to look 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, it will transform the way that people consume golf and the way that people experience golf. I don't know exactly how yet, but there is no question that is coming. Undeniably, it's happening within the marketplace. So we sit here and say, how do we collaborate with those folks to leverage each other's information, leverage each other's data to ultimately deliver better solutions downstream? Meaning, when I say downstream, to go to the consumer or B2B, etc. And if we can do that, the only one who wins is the game, and we have a platform to grow the game through information, and grow the game through data, and grow the game through what I would consider collaboration. I come to you guys. All right, so that's the kind of landscape I'd like everyone to think about a discussion, because I do think the industry could be elevated through collaboration with their vendors, those that have skills outside of their skill sets, and with each other, and with other associations, and other best practices, and other governing bodies, etc. So Matt, Andy, in your career, there has to have been a moment where you said, wow, this is an interesting prospect. And I don't mean like, oh, I'm going to buy from Titleist, I'm going to buy from TaylorMade, I'm going to buy some shirts. But What was what we would consider a collaborative environment that kind of has helped your association or served your constituents better?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all kind of familiar, at least in the last couple of years, around collaboration. Obviously, we've got collaboration now with USGA and the AGA community. We're all seeing the benefits of that. We're seeing a lot more collaboration between AGAs across the country in different regions and pockets. A lot more work together there. I'm sure a lot of us are collaborating with our allied associations in our respective areas to support advocacy and other similar interests. But I think as just specific within our organization the last few years, we focused on collaboration in the partnership space a little bit. So when we think about, as John shared, providing value to both parties, we've taken a look at how can we leverage our relationships with some of our partners to help solve problems that we have or to address some challenges that we have. And I'll give you a couple of examples that I think you all can probably appreciate a little bit. And then they're fairly simple, but it just kind of speaks to the greater point of thinking about this in a little bit different way, possibly. We all run competitions, and you have player favors, and sometimes you want to hand out apparel, and there's challenges with that of getting the sizing right, and a lot of times you're maybe just offering one style, one color. Here it is. Hopefully we got your size, etc. We took the approach with our apparel provider that we have a partnership with them and said we'd like to improve this experience for our players a little bit. Rather than shipping in a lot of product and again trying to get the sizing right and all that, we love to provide our players with an online shopping experience to where they could go in, choose whatever item they wanted, whether it was outerwear, golf shirt, etc., what color they wanted, what size they wanted, etc. You box it up in a nice presentation, you get some nice branding with that, and you drop ship it to the players. And so we worked with our official apparel provider, and they built out a store for a couple of our championships to where we were able to provide the players, here's just basically a QR code that you could use to go on to this online store for this respective championship. And then you could go on shopping, pick out exactly what you wanted, and a couple weeks later, they got their player favor in the mail from us and our apparel provider. And so it kind of carried the experience of them playing in that championship a little bit further than when they left the golf course after the final round that they played in as well. And so it provided us a better experience for our players. They got to choose exactly what they wanted, and it also worked well for our official apparel provider.
All right, so I would ask a follow-on question to that, because I think it's always important to think about the other party, right? Like Matt was very clear on what his benefit was to his association. He went to his vendor, asked them a specific question, asked them, how can you enhance the experience of my constituents? And the vendor either invested in, created new, or leveraged a part of their business that wasn't made available yet to Matt, right? So the question is, did they use that? Did it help them? Did they get leverage in other marketplaces because of that interaction with you?
Yeah, 100%. So just thinking about that experience specifically, if we had just purchased a set amount of product from them and handed it out, that would have been kind of, people would have had their product that they were wearing. But because we created this online store, players have the opportunity to purchase more of their product. They're seeing, rather than just seeing maybe one or two items that they offer, they had an opportunity to pick from 40 or 50, and a lot of the field added more than what we were giving them. And so they benefited from that opportunity as well of not just getting what we would have purchased from them. They 2x'd the amount of product that they sold because of the way that we positioned it.
So I have the USGA in the room, right? The USGA is in the room, I assume, a couple of participants here, and I just had conversations with USGA, and what you may not know about Clip is that we're sitting with, 15 really sophisticated data scientists back in London. We're working on all kinds of stuff, right? So when I saw the presentation of the USGA is related to how they're delivering information to their clients, or how are they presenting the data that they have. They may not have invested, because they're not in the business of data science. They're in the business of delivering a lot of services to hundreds and hundreds of thousands and millions of people, right? So if they reach across the aisle, we may not have a product for them, but at minimum, I can enter into discussion and kind of say, hey, this is how we can go about this. This is the way that it can be delivered. If I can kind of find a value exchange as it relates to either us creating something or you just kind of taking the information and I'm playing something forward, that may be enough. Don't make assumptions to your vendors that everything has to be price, quoted, or others. Let the vendor tell you that the biggest challenge of running a business and running your association is probably resource allocation, right? Everyone makes the same, should I be doing that in lieu of doing that? We can't do everything, right? So let your partners make those resource allocation decisions and let them determine, is this worth the freight? Is this worth the pain? And if nothing else, if they want to be in the pocket, they'll give you advice to steer you in the right direction. You'll learn something from the interaction. To me, that is a very healthy place to start collaboration. Any questions for Matt or anything that so far? You guys are going to help us out a little bit, so come forward. So Andy, tell me about some of your experiences. You've only been around for like 1 year in the world, right? In the association business. So yeah, lean into some of the kind of collaborative things that you found successful, and even if they aren't successful, why maybe they weren't or didn't work out. That would help you.
Well, I start with the why. I mean, why do you have partnerships? Why do you have collaborations? Because you can't do it all by yourself. I mean, that's the simple truth in it. And, it starts at the top with our friends at USGA, our friends at Golf Canada, and the province, so you got the top level and working down through it. But when you get to our level about partnerships, you're trying to solve for areas that you need help in. And what are those? It could be anything. It could be technology, could be products, could be tournament supplies, could be human resources, it could be a lot of different things. So the first thing I look at, when I'm looking at an area that we're trying to solve for, does the partnership make sense? And does it align with our brand and our mission at our organization? So that's number one. I think that's very important to make sure that those things meet together. And two, like John talked about, the value exchange. When you get into partnerships and collaboration, it can't be a one-way street. You have those relationships that are transactional, they're one way. I mean, that's just part of it. But when you get into the real, true partnership, there is a back and forth play there. So you got to make sure that you think of the other side as you're going through those conversations. And the third point that I look at is, and it was so well said by my friend Brian Mahoney yesterday in the session, trust. You gotta trust your partner and trust the collaboration and trust that what you're doing together is for the mutual benefit of everybody. So I look across the room here and there's so many examples. Y'all got better examples than I do of successful partnerships, whether it's domestically, internationally as well. But I think at the high level, you just want to look at, does the partnerships make sense? Does it align with your mission and what you're trying to do for the betterment of everybody involved? And I think that's where it started. And I'll give an example for us. I'll put my Alabama hat on. I got a few different hats, so I'll throw an Alabama hat on to start with. Our state tourism department. We had this conference at the Grand Hotel a couple of years ago, and the state tourism, big part. We are great partners. Jeremy Gardner sitting back there. We have an incredibly great relationship with them. Their goal is to bring people like this group into the state of Alabama. Well, the budget allows for that, but really they don't focus internally inside the state. So we went to them and said, look, we have all these events, we're traveling around, the economic impact of what we do, and it was like an aha moment for them. So now there's, we're promoting them, but also they're assisting us as well with some financial assistance. So there is a partnership there, and it's for the betterment of good for golf in Alabama as a whole. So I throw that one out there as a good example.
And Andy brings up an important point. He actually started intimating about measurement, right? Measurement of the success of a collaboration. right? Sometimes they're not measurable. Sometimes it's a feel thing, and we think we're doing the right thing, and let's see how this thing plays out. But I think it's important in any kind of business kind of initiative is to define some element of success, even if it's modest, for both your collaborator and the collaboratee, right? So in Andy's and Paul's kind of speed, what would be some of the things that that your mission would lead you to, that you want to measure, that you would want to say, like, this was a successful initiative because? Does anyone get the question? Does that make any sense? Come on, let's see a hand. Anybody? Any brave soldiers? All right, so I'll come some examples so I'll kind of tell my stories a little bit, because I'll tell you the ones that I know, and maybe that will elicit some thoughts and some questions on the other side of that. Clip launched the product in October of 22 in the college marketplace. And it was our performance product, which was data-driven kind of analysis of how a player plays and how a coach coaches, and ultimately kind of bringing that all together and delivering a practice plan so people can play their best and score their best. And we were lucky enough, every good business needs good fortune. Wake Forest Women's used the product right out of the box, and they won the national championships, only because of us. They had no chance going to the semifinals. Georgia Tech, again, came in second, but they forgot to use it the last couple of weeks. So that's how that rolled. And again, that was just good fortune. I'm only telling the story for really about collaboration. And we went forward a year, and Charlie Quick is here, who runs my college market, and we aggregated, I don't know, maybe it was 110 schools on platform by June of 23. And there was a contract given out, and it was done, the NCAA handed a contract, all know the story, but I'll tell you the story. To a company called Spikemark to replace a company called GolfStat. You all remember GolfStat? You all know the company GolfStat? And it was set to launch in September, and I had a conversation with them, again, reaching across the aisle to the new CEO of Spikemark, which it was called, and just kind of put my hand out there and say, hey, this is what we do. Think about how it can help your business. Think about if anything that I'm doing can be complimentary. I want nothing from you today. And just, I want you to know that we're here to support. And I'm rather talking about 2.5 hours of his goals and objectives and where we see it, all that stuff. And that was the beginning of a collaboration. Well, unfortunately, September 4th, I got a phone call. And it was from the CEO of Spikemark, and says, I have a problem. And I go, what's the problem? I wasn't paying attention, but the systems weren't working in college now. And that was an unfortunate circumstance. And I said, well, listen, I can't help with your systems, but my guys can help with your systems. Well, just let's look under the hood. And he goes, John, that'll be great. So we looked under the hood, and we didn't like what we saw. And we said we can help it from a technology perspective. And ultimately, that played itself through, and we perched it up and all that good stuff. And we ultimately got it in a place of sustenance. But ultimately, the damage had been done. The NCAA said, hey, John, can you do this for us in the college marketplace? I go, sure. But I said, under one condition, this has to be a collaborative process. I know nothing about the needs and desires of this marketplace from this perspective. I need to be able to reach out to all your committees, the stakeholders, the others, and we began this collaborative process to really figure out where the inflection points were, where the pain points were, and just try to knock those down without any regard for economics, because we kind of believed in the initiative, we kind of believed what was going on, and we saw the opportunity, and we said, let's play this thing forward, and let's see where this thing pans out. And I think to our culture's credit, because we're this data-focused company that has a little bit of an undefined interaction with the rest of the golf community, is that we were willing to listen. And I think the lesson being is that if you find yourself in discussion, you sometimes don't know what you don't know. Like, we make assumptions on our players. We make assumption on our good players. We make assumption on our recreational players. We make assumption on how people want to interact with our association. And I think data more than any time in this golf industry has the ability to fundamentally change the way that you all make decisions as it relates to serving the position. Right? So I think I'm fortunate being a data company. I'm nascent to this environment. I don't really have a plan fully baked with the IAGA, but we have been collaborating, right? We've kind of dipped our toes with not a lot of pain from either side. So, to be a little self-promotional, it'd be interesting to hear from you guys, positive or negatively, like where we are from a initial, just like, thanks for coming on board and we have this pretty cool thing, what's going on in the marketplace. It'd be great to hear your perspective on that from a collaborative standpoint.
So Clip reached out to us in Alabama about their product line of the performance metric. There is totally a market for that. They have a lot of, I don't know how many college teams you have, 250 that are using the platform. I mean, if you ever looked at the Clip product, I mean, you deep dive down, it's only as good as the data you put into it. Let's start there. But if you're a power user, it can tell you, here's 100% of your time. You need to work 20% on these wedges and this and that. So it's an incredible tool. So we looked at it from Alabama, like, okay, they got this great platform. How do we get it in the hands of kind of our elite players, especially on the junior side? And so Jeremy and I looked at our state teams, our all-state teams, and said, all right, let's try and put it in their hands first and see the reaction. So we want to use it as a test group. And Clip is not the only software in this space. So you got other vendors already, have some market share. And so that's what we found was, even though we tried to give it to them, as part of making the state team, that it just wasn't there wasn't a high adoption rate for it. Just the demand for it. Now, whether that was, the messaging or whatever, but the point of it is, we work with Clip to try and come up with something that we could add value to our junior program and to our all-state players, whether they use it or not. But at least we gave it a shot and gave it a trial run here, and we had 2 or 3 of our kids jump on board.
Right. So I would add, Dan, before I go to Matt, is that information for me is very helpful. Right, so his people, which we think are A candidates for our product, and they should be using it. We don't think that there's any question they should be using it. So I need to question myself. I need to go, what's our onboarding process? Are we making it easy for kids to kind of get on platform? Are we giving them enough tutorials? Are we educating them enough? Are we giving them enough carrots out there to say, hey, look at play college golf. There's no question that your coach, if he's recruiting you, if he asks you if you're using Clip and he's on Clip platform in his place, there's no question I would put you in another stratosphere as it relates to any other recruiter. So if he was serious about that, so that becomes a collaboration between us and the Alabama Golf Association. Okay, I'll take that data. I'll take that information. God forbid I speak to some of those kids. Can I at least, if I can do that, then we can learn. We can get better. So when we approach the SoCal, we approach Utah, we approach whatever, state in the union, we come better armed. We come with kind of information. And it wasn't a lot of skin for us, and it wasn't a lot of skin for them, but it started the process of a nascent technology that we didn't know how it was going to be received in this kind of setting, and gave us some really good data sets as to what we need to do to make that a more valuable piece of an association's business. Matt?
Yeah, I think our approach was kind of 2 different paths. One was specific to our junior golf program. And as John mentioned, there's 250 college golf programs using the Clip platform right now. And if we could put this platform in front of our state's best juniors while they're still in junior golf, understanding that there's a potential likelihood that they're going to be using the Clip platform once they get to college, might that give them a leg up? If they're in the recruiting process and coaches are able to look into their Clip profile and see the data, understanding that the coach already uses the platform for their respective college team, might that give them a potential leg up over other recruits? So that was kind of one path that we chose. The other, I think all of us, are trying to deeper the engagement with our members. And as Andy said, this product is for, you know, folks that are really at the elite level. Like the amount of information that the outputs from the platform are incredible. But also, I think all of us would agree, like golfers inherently are trying to get better. So to put a product in front of them that is, you know, it's data, it's analytics, but it's really a game improvement app. And so we were kind of using it for our general membership to say, look, you know, for all of our members, is this applicable to them? Maybe not, but maybe it is for 5% of them. Maybe that's already people we're seeing competing in our championships. Maybe it's not. But to John's point, the learnings and information that we can glean from the inputs that they're having in there, how are they using an app? How are they utilizing technology and data to get better in the game? Might that give us some insights into how we might change some things that we do organizationally down the road?
Yeah, I think it makes an interesting point. Yeah, about Clip. Well, which don't Clip. The imprint, you know, one thing about technology, there is a footprint left. There is a tracking mechanism. There's the ability to understand data. So like Matt was forward thinking and he said, if I can start understanding their behaviors because the platform actually memorializes all of their behaviors, and I understand what tournaments they're playing, how far they're traveling, are they performing better on certain days? Maybe they're kind of putting in commentary or putting in data that tells them they're playing better on a Thursday through Saturday because of school pressures, or they're playing better on a Monday through Wednesday because of whatever. So the point being is that all of your data partners, all of your technology product, all the guys that do the live scoring, all the people that do the shot tracer stuff, this data can be repurposed to define behaviors that are in your marketplace. Right? If you have a better idea of how your people are behaving because of interactions with certain technologies, that is an ancillary and a value add that your vendors could be providing at no value. Right? I don't think Matt would consider doing business with if he didn't believe that journey. Like he wanted to help, you know, the elite junior players, but I couldn't be left alone to do that, right? But Matt kind of said, okay, let me team up with a data partner, independent, you know, and if we're able to deliver back insights into his business because of collaboration, because John is now thinking about, okay, what is the interaction at the state golf level as it relates to the people that are on Clip? Are they behaving differently than the college people? Are they behaving differently than the kids that are in the academies? I don't know. But this is the kind of stuff that can be driven back to the associations to really help them grow their businesses. Does that make sense? All right, cool. So I'm now going to go out to the field and I'm going to ask either a friendly or others going to do like the USGA, all right? The USGA, what are some of the challenges from a technology standpoint that you guys are dealing with or trying to solve for that maybe does not sit within the expertise and in-house of the USGA? I don't want to put you on the spot right now.
Well, I'm not going to speak for other departments, but specifically to what I do day in, day out. Certainly our database, our operation, our database is quite it was built in-house a long time ago, and I've always thought there was room for improvement. I don't think we ever went down that route. See if it was in the cards for you, but not. But it's always been an area of opportunity, for sure.
And does expertise sit within house, or they're familiar with it, but maybe not to re-engineer it? Is that possible?
Probably we certainly have some expertise, I imagine, but I think what we eventually want to get to, there might be some better options.
Yeah. So I would say like that is an opportunity for collaboration, right? As big as great as the USGA and all the things that they do for our industry, they're sitting with a little bit of a void, right? And the marketplace, believe me, there are plenty of incredible technologists that have very sophisticated data scientists sitting inside their businesses. If he reached across the aisle, whether it be me or 7 other vendors that sit within the environment, he would at minimum have a place to think about, be able to make smart presentations, be able to understand cost structures, be able to make proposals to his people. That to me is the beginning of industry collaboration, right? And You know, God forbid the PGA of America went through the same process 3 years ago. Wouldn't it be awesome if you can reach across the aisle and go, hey, what was best practices there? You know, hey, I know you did some interaction with this consulting group. Maybe they hired McKinsey to go do something, but okay, what did they tell you about your data sets? And how are they delivering information back? The point being is that there's no way in any business, any organization, any division within an organization has all the skill sets and the answers in this incredibly dynamic and fast-changing world. As a company, I don't have it. As organizations, we don't have it. But it exists. If we took everyone in this room collectively, we probably have a lot of answers to a lot of questions. All that takes is reaching across the aisle, reaching for best practices, leveraging our own industry folks, asking them, what have you learned? What failed? Failure is an incredible, powerful mechanism to change, right? I mean, as an entrepreneur, I failed many more times than I've succeeded. Right? And all that does is just bring us back to the table to find out answers in a collaborative way. And I think that's the overarching message that I kind of wanted to get across here is for the industry. I believe, and tell me if I'm nuts, I believe the golf industry is that whole idea that it's provincial. Does that make sense to y'all? Like, do people stay in their own lanes a little too much maybe in this industry? Or am I misreading? What do you think?
What?
Oh yeah, right? So, you know, I don't know. The NBA and the way basketball is played was fundamentally changed by information about how to play the game, right? I played basketball in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, late 80s. And we played differently than they play today. You know why? Because they actually saw that they needed to think about how they play the game differently. And what did they do? They reached out to data. They reached out to information. They reached out to analytics. They reached out to making decisions. The NFL doesn't look the same as it did 20 years ago. Neither does the way that DeChambeau played the game of golf. And these collaborative things have to happen or the industry will be left behind. The business is moving too fast. The consumers are going to be demanding real kind of technology-enabled things. And I don't mean to take away all the beauty and all the incredibleness that we love about golf, but just to enhance it and help you all make better decisions and how you all conduct your business. What do you guys think about data and how does that live within your guys' business lives? Have we gotten there yet, or is it something that we need to do, or where do you think we are?
Well, it's we got much better. It's probably a loaded question. Our technology has gotten much better. That's producing the data that's helping us make business decisions going forward. You know, we're not totally there yet, and that's where you need to reach out to some other vendors to help with whatever it is that you need to do. But I think it's on the right trajectory right now. And I think we are changing our mindset about, you know, we're not just golf associations, we're businesses. And we talked about this in our ED CEO, you know, breakouts that, you know, we got to look at, you know, we're small businesses, you know, doing golf. And, you know, so we're trying to change how we, you know, the business model, you know, is shifting and, you know, we're in a great place, but, you know, data technology is certainly a big part of the future of what we're going to do and how we deliver, you know, our services and message to our members and collaborate and create that community.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all trying to figure out how to use technology to create some efficiencies within our operations and streamline some processes. And, you know, technology's fast moving. You know, I mean, it's, you know,
Overwhelming at times.
Yeah. So it's just like, you know, trying to keep up with everything that's available is difficult. Trying to incorporate that into our businesses, and like Andy said, like, you know, we're golf associations. You know, most of our staff are golf administrators. They're not, you know, IT or tech wizards, but, you know, to be able to bring somebody in, but a lot of us are having to, you know, leverage relationships and outsource some things and, you know, bring in some independent contractors to assist with first understanding what the capabilities are, and then figuring out of those what makes sense for your operation. and how they can continue to improve, like I said, those efficiencies and streamline some processes that you have.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to realize, like, you may be bumping up against the ceiling. You know, your capacity in some areas has been reached, so now you need to kind of look outside and figure out, all right, you know, how do I solve for, you know, development? You know, how do we solve for, you know, accounting software that's, you know, antiquated? You know, so there's all kinds of things that you gotta figure out. But I think the biggest thing for us is to realize that it's okay to look outside and collaborate and talk to each other. That's what's the greatest thing about this conference is the opportunity to sit here and share, you know, our experiences, what's worked, what hasn't worked. You know, because partnerships are hard. I mean, let's just start there. I mean, you know, when you get into kind of the sponsorship, partnership, you know, that spectrum in all this, that it takes time. And, you know, most of us are smaller organizations. You know, how many here have somebody dedicated to just working on sponsorships, partnerships, you know, those types of things? I mean, how many associations actually have somebody? Yeah, a couple, you know, so it's amazing that we're somewhat successful in a way of what we're doing now, but how can we be better at it in the future? Because it does take time. You got to cultivate it. You know, the two-way street, the back and forth on the collaboration. You know, it's easier in some sectors than in others, and the value exchange. And you know, sometimes it's monetary, sometimes it's not. And you know, like we talk about, how do you measure it? I think every relationship is unique in that in that perspective, that you can't just say it's a hard and fast, you know, this is how we're going to measure, you know, success in this partnership. So it's you got to be nimble on it and you know, try and do what's best for your organization and your membership.
Yeah, you know, just to layer on to that, you guys have a pretty significant, and I watched Mr. Kalmar walk around the room, and I kind of really view that as a healthy, collaborative relationship. Like, I kind of see a lot of discussion. I see him leaning into operations. I see him leaning in. There's no question, knowing what they do, that they're pretty damn good at business process. I imagine they're pretty good at marketing. I imagine, so like, even though they're not linearly doing that stuff to you in marketplace, like, these are the kind of ways that you should be thinking about us and companies like that, like the software, the soft goods example, right? There's no question they're good at logistics. There's no question they have a good order process. There's no question that they have best practices as it relates to invoicing and inventory and all those good things. Like, lean on that. Like, that's the beginning of it. You shouldn't be shy to kind of raise your hand and say, wow, like, you know, John, like, you know, we're having trouble with our data sets, and I don't know how to organize it. And if it's 5 minutes on the phone and someone points in the right direction, and again, Clip may say, I can't put resources on that, but here's some guidance. I can't make a value exchange, right? But they may just be a helpful kind of perspective to lead you in the right direction. And I think that's the essence of collaboration. I don't know where this stuff is going. Like, is my product going to be an incredible fit? Matt and Andy don't know the development process of exactly where we're going with our product. We don't know if it's going to go all the way downstream to the kind of beginning players or others. We don't know. But we're going to learn a lot along the way. And if you're a little patient and you're really adding value to each other and you're finding ways to measure wins and things that aren't working and make some adjustments, I think that's where collaboration really starts ringing. Right? And raise your hands and reach across the aisle, because there's no one in business, there's no one, and small businesses, right? We're in business. There's no one in business who has all the answers on any of these disciplines. Maybe Apple, right? But everyone else is scrambling for information. Just, there's so much resource out there, and I think the partners and your fellow kind of associations are a great place to look for just some good, you know, collab. That's why we're all here, right? We're here to talk to each other. And the worst thing that happens, we don't talk to each other here. We go in our own little offices and we disappear for another year until we see each other next year. Make sure you reach out to 5 people and say, hey, I heard you speak on this, or I was talking in the hallway about that. If I have a challenge with my marketing plan, and maybe you can assist in that way. And I think I think that's where these things have value. Like I've been to a lot of conferences, and I always say, oh, they're so collaborative. But at the end of the day, you gotta make things happen after that, right? You gotta make the engine run, you gotta make it cross. And I don't really have much more. Do you guys have anything more to add?
Not really. I think, again, just, we've taken some time internally at our association to figure out what we do well and what we don't do well.
Yeah.
And that's where we've leaned on collaboration and reaching out to others that do this a lot better than we do. We're trying to bring them in, and again, try to create that value exchange of here's what we need, can we provide you value back as part of this relationship? So again, we've not had a problem like looking ourselves in the mirror and trying to figure out, like, there's only so much we can do and do well, and use that as kind of the catalyst to reaching outside our organization to identify and form some of these relationships.
Does anybody have any questions for the panel? Any three of us? We're so hungry that we can't even see it. Really, I want to thank you guys. Thank you for your input. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your answers, and we really appreciate you here today. And have a great rest of the show. I'm catching a plane in about an hour, so I'm scooting out of here. 2 hours, I got to catch a plane, and I hope to see you all on the road. Thank you for being part of this. I think this was an incredible conference. I sat in some incredible meetings. I hope you got a little bit out of what we said here today, and have a great rest of the show.